Good to trip on the first step of the day. Thank you, Nick. Thanks for the kind introduction, and great to see a big audience today. As Nick said, we've got gold in Western Australia, but we've got a lot more in the portfolio that I'll run through with you guys today. Obviously, with the challenging markets, as Alex said, we're in the same position as a lot of other explorers at the moment, a fairly depressed share price at 0.06 cents. Market cap is $7 million, but we do have cash in the bank of $2 million at the end of the December quarter, so it puts us in good stead and a pretty undemanding EV of $5 million. The board, myself CEO, I've got 20 years experience, geologist, worked over the world, feasibilities, exploration and whatnot. And my chairman, Lindsay Dudfield's got about double from me. So a very experienced technical board, and we've got a great legal, company secretarial and compliance background with the rest of the board members. So very diverse experience. So what's Alchemy got? Who is Alchemy? Well, we're a gold company. We were a gold company, and we've developed into a few others in the last few years. We've got a growing gold inventory in our portfolio. We've got over 450,000 ounces of combined resources across 2 projects. A free carried gold joint venture with Catalyst Metals in the Bryah. And we've discovered lithium on our ground, in the gold ground, funnily enough, in the Battery Belt in Western Australia, east of Kalgoorlie. And we've got an earn-in and joint venture with JOGMEC, the Japanese government, and that was recently cemented late last year, and we're working furiously on that now. We've also got decent bases and bulks with the high-grade copper-gold assets in New South Wales, in the Lachlan Fold Belt. And we've got very high-grade hematite sticking out of the ground in the Bryah projects in Western Australia, and I'll run through that now. So just zooming on other projects, Coroni is our main gold project in Western Australia. It used to be about roughly about 1,200 square k's of ground, about 130 kilometres east of Kalgoorlie. It's a 100% owned position. It's in the Battery Belt with the lithium belt, and we have 111,000 ounces of resources right on the doorstep of what used to be called Silver Lake Resources, now Vault Minerals, at their Aldous operations, literally a few hundred metres away from their projects and their mines. As I said, we've got the lithium joint venture with JOGMEC on the same ground. Up in the Bryah, we've got the gold joint venture with Catalyst Metals on the Hermes deposit up there in the Plutonic Belt, where we own 20%. And we've got high-grade iron ore at Valley Bore, which is just north of Meekatharra. In Lachlan Fold Belt, we've got our Yellow Mountain project that's very high-grade copper-gold. At Overflow, we have 342,000 ounces of gold equivalent resources there near existing mines. We're down the road from Aurelia and just north of Mineral Hill. And at Westland, we've got a 20 million tonne nickel cobalt resource and high purity alumina asset there. Just zooming in on the Kalgoorlie assets now with gold and lithium. Coroni, as I spoke about just then, 100% owned ground, roughly sort of 1,200 square kilometres of ground, all in gold there. Might be a bit of a complicated map, but the gold part is sort of Alchemy's ground, and the red part is our recent joint venture with JOGMEC. We surround the Mana lithium deposit. That's about a 50 million tonne lithium deposit. As I said, the confusing thing is this was always gold ground, and we found lithium-bearing pegmatites on our ground, as did the Global Lithium guys when they originally found it. They were originally looking for gold, and it's turned into a lithium province as well, so nothing better than having two sort of commodities in the same ground. As I said, our joint venture with JOGMEC is for them to earn 51% in the ground by spending $6 million over 5 years. And we've spent probably close to $1 million of that already and just approved the budget for 2025. Up at Lake Rebecca to the north, this is particularly interesting. It's adjacent to Ramelius Resources and Northern Star. We're sandwiched in between those 2 assets in there, in the Pingen Shear and the Laverton Tectonic Zone, which is one of the most prolific gold belts. And I'll talk a bit about this ground in a second, which is particularly interesting. It's a tightly held belt, and as you can see, it's held by mining companies generally. So just zooming in on the Kalgoorlie Coroni assets to the south first. Large areas of lithium and soil anomalism. Those dots on there are the soil samples we took last year. And these are big areas, you've got 15 by 5 kilometre areas of anomalism, and that still remains to be tested. And we're doing a lot of that work now with JOGMEC. Just to the east of there, in the middle of the picture where there's a lot more sort of concentrated dots, is where our gold ground is. And those little dots to the sort of very south of the picture there is the open pits owned by Silver Lake, or now Vault Minerals. So we're right on the doorstep. It presents a lot of commercialisation opportunities there for us if we can get those across the line to generate some value for shareholders with actually moving to a production stage. Just looking to the north here at Lake Rebecca, and this is particularly interesting because there's been a lot of work up here in recent weeks. You may have seen news from Calgold with their Lighthorse discovery and Oz Aurum to the west with their Malgabby North project, and there's a lot of gold results coming out of both these companies along two major structural trends there. As I said, we're sandwiched in between Northern Star and Ramelius, and we own 100% of that ground, and those gold sort of lines on there is all our gold targets that the guys have been looking at most recently. So this is a map of the same ground, and all these yellow dots and the red dots on there is air core and RAB holes. Now this is particularly interesting because what Calgold spoke about when they made their Lighthorse discovery is that it was a blind discovery, and air core drilling was relatively ineffective, and what they did was they drilled RC drilling, which goes into bedrock. So this is all the RAB and the air core holes that our geos have plotted up, and showing the RC holes in red and all the RAB and air core in yellow. And the RC holes is generally the ones that probably we consider to be effective. And the next slide will show you how many RC holes have been drilled. 1. So on about 530 square kilometres of ground, we consider to be probably 1 hole to be effective in testing bedrock for bedrock gold mineralisation, similar to what Calgold found. So it's not to say that the air core and RAB is ineffective. It presents a nice geochemical map, but it won't find you primary gold mineralisation, which the Calgold guys have found. So we're looking at mitigating that. We've got teams on the ground. The boys have been up there a few weeks ago. Soil samples, rock chip samples, and we're doing drill targeting on that now to go and move in for a program, hopefully mid-year. Just looking to the north in the Bryah Basin, this is our gold JV and our iron ore ground. The north of there is the Hermes asset that we have. We have that in joint venture with Catalyst Metals, and we own 20%, and we're free carried to a decision to mine on that. We also have a net smelter royalty on the Hermes open pit production as well. And I'd speculate the value of that would be reasonably good at the moment given the price of gold. And then to the south there, we had a joint venture with Sandfire Resources, and they handed back the joint venture when DeGrussa wound up. And we've identified the Valley Bore prospect, which has iron ore enrichment over 2 kilometres sticking out of the ground, and I'll cover off on that now. So just looking at the Valley Bore asset there, it might be a bit of a complicated map, but you should just look at the red areas in there. This is the high-grade banded iron formations, and the guys have been up there mapping last year, and we took some samples, and we can get up to 65.3% iron, and I haven't seen those sorts of grades in the hands of a junior ever, and I used to be an analyst, and I never used to see these sorts of grades in the hands of a junior like us, and it stretches over about 2 kilometres, ranges between 10 and 80 metres wide, and you can speculate sort of how deep it goes. If it goes 100 metres, there's some reasonable tonnage there, we think. So next steps is for us to go and do a drill program up there, which we're going to plan in this year, as soon as we can schedule it in with all the other work. Drill maybe 20 holes and try and wrap a resource around that. Just moving to New South Wales now, we have 3 assets over there: Yellow Mountain, copper gold, the Overflow, which has a resource on it, as I spoke about earlier, and our West Lynn nickel cobalt resource. It's an important part of the world now with the Lachlan Fold Belt. We've got the likes of AGC, Australian Gold and Copper, pumping out some really decent results down there. Mineral Hills on fire as well with their production, and Federation's just restarted with Aurelia as well. So there's a lot of action in the area, and it's an exciting place to be. So just looking at Yellow Mountain there in the south, we're a few kilometres away from Mineral Hill Mine owned by Kingston, and we took some mullock samples there of the old mines from the 1800s, and we got up to 28.4% copper, 1.59 gold and 7.2% lead. Now, I'm not going to lead you down a garden path and say that's an average grade. This is what the stuff they were chucking away on the ground. So we just sampled that stuff on the ground, saw what it was going, and it shows you that there's material mineralisation in the ground somewhere. The actual results you can see there of drilling from the probably pre-1980s, 24 metres at 1% copper, 1.2% lead, and decent grades, decent widths. Now, our guys went up there and did some sampling last year, and the other thing is there's a big induced polarisation anomaly off there as well, and we think that may be the source of mineralisation. It's probably a 500 metre deep diamond hole. Time will tell whether we go and drill that hole and test that theory, and it's obviously funds dependent, of course. So we've got land access agreements that have been completed, heritage surveys have been completed, and we're awaiting final government approvals. Just very quickly looking at those, this is sort of zooming in on that Yellow Mountain area. The blue lines is our planned drill holes. As you can see, the samples that we took from last year, we got from mullock piles, the old mine piles, 18.2% lead, 20% zinc, and from actual in situ grades on the ground, so sticking out of the ground outcrops, we got 2% copper, 2.5 or 2.34 grams per tonne gold, and 8.5% lead. So there's gear there, and it's sticking out of the ground, and it hasn't been drilled since probably the late 1970s. Overflow to the north, it sits 20 kilometres away, 342,000 ounce resource. We've sort of wrapped that broad sort of line around it as a resource envelope, which we calculated. But you can see the grades in this thing: 6 metres at 7.6 gold, 3.6% zinc, 10 metres at 4.4 gold. These are very, very mineable numbers. And we've traced mineralisation over 700 metres of strike. Perhaps the more exciting thing for us is along strike. And again, the guys were out there last year doing field mapping, and 300 metres along strike, we were getting grades there of 14.95 grams per tonne. In Old Mullock, again, it was chucked out of an old mine shaft that was, we don't even know when, it was probably made out of wood, so it's pretty old. And there's still mineralisation to the north. So the regional potential for us is the key. If we can rip an open pit out there and jump into it in a few satellites, then it's game on. You've got Aurelia's processing plant 50 kilometres away to the west, and you've got Kingston to the south. So where's Alchemy going? The indicative exploration timeline, we've got a fair bit on, obviously with the lithium targets with the JOGMEC joint venture. We've just finished soil sampling. We've probably spent the best part of $900,000 in 3 months on that joint venture, funded by them. And we're probably going to spend another $1 million over the next 12 months once that's approved. And then we'll look to do air core drilling, results in interpretation and further drilling. The gold targets, field trip and targeting's been done, interpretation and planning's underway, air core drilling up in Lake Rebecca and around Coroni. The Catalyst joint venture just manages itself, we're free carried. Drill logistics for Iron Valley, obviously we've only got a certain amount of people, so we can only do a certain amount of drill programs simultaneously, but we're trying very hard. And then similarly at Yellow Mountain, we're just waiting on the final tick of government approvals to jump in there. We've finished everything else and ticked all the rest of the boxes, and we'll be the first company in there since probably 1978 to go and do a drill program. So it's very exciting indeed, and as well as the overflow drilling. So Alchemy's got a bit on. We manage our cash well. We're pretty nimble. And yeah, if you like the story, please follow us along that journey. We're in a good position, significant belts, good team, great projects. We're not sort of looking at projects in remote areas. They're close to key infrastructure. We're funded, and the focus near term is on gold assets because the gold price is booming, of course. And we've got a very attractive enterprise value and a leverage to exploration success. So if you want to join us on that journey, come and have a chat. And yeah, thank you for your time today. Much appreciated.